The first movie is terrific, but the second movie is so great and takes the whole idea for a few dollars is so great and takes the whole idea to such a bigger canvas that it obliterates the first one.
Wow.
Then the third one, Good and the Bad and the Ugly, does the same thing to the second one. And that's kind of what never happened.
Imagine making a movie with real horses, real deserts, almost no CGI, and creating scenes so iconic that filmmakers are still copying them more than 60 years later. That's exactly what happened with the Dollars Trilogy. Today, when people think about classic westerns, they often imagine brave heroes wearing white hats and evil villains dressed in black. The good guy saves the day, the bad guy loses. Simple. But then the Dollars Trilogy arrived and changed everything. Instead of giving audiences a perfect hero, it gave them a mystery. A man with no clear past, no long speeches, no dramatic introductions, just a poncho, a cigar, and a stare that could make an entire room uncomfortable. That character was played by Clint Eastwood, and somehow a man who barely talked became one of the coolest characters in movie history. What's even more impressive is that these movies were made with extremely limited resources compared to modern blockbusters. No giant CGI armies, no green screens, no digital explosions, just practical filmmaking. And somehow that limitation became their greatest strength. When you watch the Dollars Trilogy today, one thing immediately stands out: everything feels real. Because it was real, the horses are real, the dust is real, the heat is real, the danger feels real. You can almost feel the dry wind blowing across the desert. Modern movies often use computer-generated effects to create excitement, but these films relied on actual locations and practical effects. When a horse runs through a dusty town, the dust isn't added later by a computer. It's actually there. When characters stand under the burning sun, they're actually standing under that sun. That authenticity gives the movies a texture that many modern productions struggle to recreate. But the visuals weren't the only thing that made these films revolutionary. The real genius was the man behind the camera. Sergio Leone wasn't interested in making westerns the traditional way. He wanted something different, something slower, something more intense, something audiences had never experienced before. Most directors focused on action. Leone focused on anticipation. Instead of showing a gunfight immediately, he made people wait, and wait, and wait some more. At first, nothing seems to happen. Two characters stare at each other. The music slowly builds. The tension rises. Every second feels longer than the last. And somehow those moments become more exciting than the actual shooting. This approach completely changed the language of action filmmaking. Today, many movies cut between shots every few seconds. Fast edits, fast movement, fast pacing. Leone went in the opposite direction. He stretched time. He understood something important. The audience isn't afraid of the gunshot. They're afraid of not knowing when it's coming. That's why his famous duels feel so powerful. And then there are the close-ups. Lots and lots of close-ups. Eyes, sweat, wrinkled faces, nervous expressions. Instead of showing the entire scene, Leone often zoomed in so close that the screen was filled with a character's eyes. It sounds simple now, but at the time it felt revolutionary. Those extreme close-ups made every duel feel personal. Every glance became important. Every blink mattered. The audience wasn't just watching a gunfight, they were watching a psychological battle. And that's exactly why those scenes remain unforgettable today. Of course, we can't talk about the Dollars Trilogy without mentioning the music, because the music isn't just background sound, it's a character of its own. The legendary composer Ennio Morricone created some of the most recognizable movie themes ever written. Before these films, Western music often sounded traditional and orchestral. Morricone broke the rules. He used whistles, guitars, voices, unusual sounds, even noises that seemed strange for movie music. The result was something completely unique. The moment you hear those themes, you instantly know what movie you're watching. Few soundtracks in cinema history have achieved that level of recognition, and here's something many people don't realize. The influence of the Dollars Trilogy extends far beyond Westerns. Its DNA can be found almost everywhere in modern entertainment. The tension building, the anti-hero characters, the visual storytelling, the dramatic standoffs, the iconic music. All of it inspired future generations of filmmakers. You can see its influence on Star Wars, you can see traces of it in Breaking Bad, and few modern directors celebrate its influence more openly than Quentin Tarantino. In fact, many scenes that audiences consider modern innovations actually have roots in these films. The silent badass hero, the long stare down before a confrontation, the tension-filled showdown, the morally gray protagonist. The Dollars Trilogy helped popularize all of them. That's why so many filmmakers continue studying these movies decades later. They aren't just westerns, they're filmmaking lessons. Every frame demonstrates how visual storytelling can communicate more than dialogue ever could. What's fascinating is that many people recognize the references without realizing where they came from. They've seen the poncho, they've heard the music, they've watched scenes inspired by Leone's style, but they've never experienced the original source. It's like knowing hundreds of songs sampled from one artist without ever listening to that artist. The influence is everywhere, yet the originals remain surprisingly undiscovered by younger audiences. And that's a shame, because these movies still work, not as historical artifacts, not as museum pieces, but as genuinely entertaining films. The tension still works, the music still works, the performances still work, and the cinematography still feels fresh. Very few movies can make that claim after more than 6 decades, so before watching another modern action movie, before watching another showdown inspired by these classics, go back to the source. Watch one film from the Dollars Trilogy, pay attention to the silence, pay attention to the close-ups, pay attention to how much emotion is communicated without words. You'll quickly realize that many of today's biggest filmmakers are still learning from ideas Sergio Leone mastered decades ago, and once you've seen it, you'll understand why the Dollars Trilogy isn't just remembered, it's respected. Because some movies entertain audiences, but a rare few change cinema forever. The Dollars Trilogy did exactly that.